Hi, this is Edward Troxel, and today we're going to look at parent and child tracks. First, we're going to look at how we add tracks to the timeline again, and then we're going to expand on that to make some of the tracks to be child tracks. Then once we have done that, we are going to look to see how we can access the parent track motion settings, which is technically basically the same as accessing the regular track motion settings. There's just one slight little difference. So let's take a look and see how all that works. The first thing we want to do is add some new tracks to the timeline. We're going to start with a blank timeline, so the first thing we're going to do is add a parent track, which I've named parent track, and we're going to put it in the 0 position, and then we will add that track to the project. Then we're going to add a child track called child 1, and we'll add that to the project. Then we'll create a new track called child 2 and add that to the project. Next, we'll add a fourth track called child 3, and then we'll add that to the project. So the first track is being added in the 0 position, then the second track is in the 1 position, 2, and then the fourth track is in the 3 position, so they're going to be added from top down. So let's take a quick run on this and see what happens. So we'll go to Tools, Scripting, Run Script, run this script, and we can see that all of the tracks have been added. Child 1 is not a child track at this point, neither is child 2 or child 3. So now let's go in and see what it's going to take to make this a child. If we right click on this, we can go to More, Make Compositing Child, and now this is a child track to track 1. And same thing here, we could go in More, Make Compositing Child, and it would be scooted over. And same thing here, Make Compositing Child, now it is scooted over. Now I'm going to do this one again, Make Compositing Child, and notice now this child 3 is a child to child 2, which is a child to the parent track. So we're going to figure out how to make this configuration from the code. So if we go back and look at the code, we create the parent track and add it to the project. We create child 1, add that to the project. Now we're going to make one little change here. We're going to say child 1 dot composite nesting level equals 1. That is going to make this a child to the parent track. Then we're going to add child 2, create a new track called child 2, add that to the project. Once again, we're going to change the composite nesting level to 1, which will also make that a child to the parent track. Then we're going to create the new track called child 3, add that to the project. And then in this case, I'm going to change the composite nesting level to 2. That means it's going to go down 2 levels. So this one should now be a child to child 2. So let's run this and see how Vegas reacts. So now we have the parent track, then it has a child to the parent track. Child 2 is a child to the parent track. Child 3 is a child to child 2. Now if we look at this, we have our parent composite mode and our parent motion as opposed to just our standard track motion. So if I click on track motion, then we get our standard screen that we've been using, which could be either source alpha or 3D source alpha. So we could be in 3D mode or 2D mode. And this is 1920 by 1080, which is my project size. If we come over here to the project composite mode, once again we can change it to 3D source alpha or just be on standard source alpha. And then here is the parent track motion. But notice that the parent track motion is square, and we can see here it is 1080 by 1080. So it's 1080 by 1080. So now let's see how we can access that track motion information. So we have everything exactly the way we did before. Add the parent track, add the child 1, set it to composite level 1, add the child 2, set it to nesting level 1, and add child 3, set it to nesting level 1. But now we're going to look at the parent track, and we're going to look at the parent track motion as opposed to just track motion. This is really the one change that you have to make to differentiate between track motion and parent track motion, is we have to use the parent track motion instead of just track motion. So when I push the dot here, we'll notice we have the parent track motion, the composite mode, all this with parent as opposed to just the set composite mode and track motion. So down here we have track motion. Up here we have parent track motion. So that's really the only difference between accessing the track motion versus the parent track motion. So what I want to do is get the first keyframe, which is always there by default. So we're going to get parent track motion dot motion keyframes 0. This is just a track motion keyframe. It's not a parent track motion keyframe, it's just a track motion keyframe that's coming from parent track motion. And so I've got it set to my keyframe. And then, if you remember a couple tutorials back, we had the show info routine, which would show the information about that keyframe. So down here is the show info routine again. That's just going to show some various information from that keyframe, showing the track motion information. So now let's run this again. So now we have all of the tracks added, the same as before. Now we are looking at the parent track motion for the first track. And as we saw before, the width and the height is 1080. It says that the depth is 1080. And then all of these positions are just 000 because they have not been changed at this point. So if we go back and look at this, we will see that this was 1080, this was 1080. If we go to 3D Source Alpha, we will see that our depth was also 1080. And so all of those numbers match what we saw on the screen. So as you can see, creating the parent-child relationship on tracks is not all that difficult. We just have to change the composite nesting level for all the child tracks to be the proper distance in. And then once we have a parent track, we can simply access the parent track motion the same as we did the standard track motion. So I hope you find this helpful. Leave me some comments. Let me know what you'd like to see us do next. Please sign up at www.JETDV.com and subscribe on YouTube to get further notifications on when new videos are presented.